Taurus FlexFit PinFeed Penetrator, Chaplet version. Use this instructional video if number 4 flat ESP cable does not fit up the length of the packer. Begin by installing the packer sub onto the top of the packer's short string. Now, measure and record the entire length of the packer's short string, including pup joint, crossover, and sub. Bring cable alongside packer in the same position it will have upon completion. Make a mark on the cable, flush with the bottom of the packer. Lay cable out horizontally. From the first mark, measure up hole, the short string length, plus an additional 18 inches. Cut the cable at this point. Now, measure back 10 inches from the first mark, and make a flat armor end mark. Remove all flat cable armor and braid, up hole from this mark. At this point there should be exposed leaded conductors that run the length of the packer's short string, plus an additional 28 inches. Grease the length of all 3 leaded conductors so that chaplets can be easily installed. Line up conductors into chaplet holes and slide a chaplet down the length of the exposed leaded conductors. Slide the chaplet until it is as close to the flat armor end as it will go. The chaplets help to protect and separate the conductors. Stack chaplets, one on top of another, onto leaded conductors. Leave 6 to 13 inches of exposed conductors at the up-hole end. Make sure conductors are even in length when cable is straightened out. Use cutback gauge to remove lead sheath and primary insulation from each conductor. After cleaning the conductor ends, crimp CP pins onto conductors. Begin by sliding a CP pin onto a conductor. Use the Nico press crimper to crimp the center mark of the CP pin barrel twice, at 90 degrees apart. Repeat this process for all 3 marks on all 3 CP pin barrels. Protect the insulation on either side of the CP pin barrels, so that the crimps can be easily deburred. Use sandpaper to remove all sharp edges on CP pin barrels. Once the crimps on the CP pin barrels have been thoroughly sanded and cleaned, it is time to begin taping. Wrap 6 half-lap layers of high-temperature FEP tape onto each conductor. Use the provided field detachable template as a guide. The high-temp tape should be wrapped up to, and no further than, the first mark on the CP pin's peak insulation. Next, wrap 2 layers of high-modulus tape over the high-temp tape. Again, use the field detachable template as a guide. The high-mod tape should be wrapped up to, but not further than, the second mark on the CP pin's peak insulation. The tape should be wrapped over about an inch of lead sheath. Use the field detachable template to make a verification mark on one of the lead conductors, 9 inches from the top of the pins. Once all 3 pins are taped, install the provided lifting eyelet onto the copper tips of the pins. This lifting eyelet can be used to pull the pins and conductors up the short string of the packer. In order to protect them, wrap poly web or electrical tape over the tape pins. Be sure not to wrap over any chaplets. Using the eyelet, pull the cable conductors up the short string of the packer. Once the conductors have been fed up the packer, remove the poly web, eyelet, and any chaplets that are accessible. Rotate the cable conductors so that one conductor is facing directly away from the production tubing. Grease the holes in the rubber 3-boot barrier. Slide the cable barrier nut, plates, and 3-boot barrier down the conductors as shown. Now, slide the back housing over the conductors and let it rest on top of the cable barrier system. Apply a light coating of dielectric silicone grease to the peak insulation on the CP pins. Do not apply grease to copper. Install the cartridge onto the CP pins until it shoulders. Install the long installation sub onto the nose of the cartridge, and lock it in place, using provided all thread. Verify the cartridge has been correctly installed by using Field Detachable Template. Slide the back housing up and screw it onto the cartridge. Lock the back housing to the cartridge using provided set screws. Now slide the cable barrier nut up over the 3-boot barrier and hand tighten the nut to the back housing. The system can now be injected with silicone putting compound. The injection and vent holes are located at the bottom of the cartridge. The U-plate assembly can be used to help install the Packer adapter body, but is not necessary in most cases. Slide the Packer adapter body over the PinFeed cartridge assembly. Grab the lifting sub to help keep the cartridge assembly in place as the Packer adapter body is lowered. Install the Packer adapter body onto the Packer sub. Tighten at least 6 out of 8 set screws to lock the adapter to the sub. At this point the cartridge assembly can be raised or lowered to eliminate slack. Once the cartridge assembly has been adjusted to its final position, install the locating nut onto it, until the nut shoulder is on the top of the Packer adapter body. Do not tighten this nut. Now, the retaining cap can be installed over the locating nut. Once it has been tightened to the Packer adapter body, install set screws to lock it in position. Remove the all-thread and lifting sub from the assembly. Install positioning screws into the cartridge body nose. Install the rubber protector cap until you are ready to connect the female connector to the assembly.